Fellow spirit lifters, good day. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you so much for being with us this day. This video is being filmed in 2020. The coronavirus has literally affected our way of life all around the world, whether it be health, socially, economically. In one way or the other, we've all been greatly impacted by this situation. And I want to do the best I can to give you the best information I can and to help you in this time of confusion and frustration and anxiety. So I fortunately have my guest today, Dr. Gloria Ornelas Hall, and she's gonna explain and give you background exactly who she is. Dr. Gloria, thank you so much for being on Spirit Lift. If you could just tell our viewers, please, who you are, your background and experience.
Thank you very much. Congratulations for this wonderful opportunity. I am Dr. Gloria Ornelas. I am a medical doctor. I'm an epidemiologist from the Center for Disease Control, CDC in Atlanta. I'm the major in public health. And I had a chance to run the National Information Centers against AIDS in Mexico during the AIDS epidemic, the pandemic. And we learned a lot. One of the basic things was that information is not enough to modify behavior. We have to understand why we do things. So now that we're being asked to stay at home, to have all these precautions, it's important to look into some of the underlying reasons why this is true. So I'd like to start, if I may, with a couple images that will help explain.
And viewers of Spirit Lift, if you have any questions during the doctor's presentation at any point, just please feel free to leave your comments below. Thank you, Doctor.
Well, we'll start from the beginning and trying to see what this is all about. We're talking about an international emergency that has been called so by the World Health Organization, because it has evolved from being an endemic to being a pandemic. Now, what is this exactly? We have a local outburst that started in Wuhan, in China, and that expanded into the whole regional area of the South Pacific and Asia, and became an epidemic and later a pandemic. So reviewing, an endemic is local, an epidemic is on top of a city, for example, and a pandemic is worldwide. And we're talking about a worldwide pandemic caused by a virus. It's the COVID, and the words stand for coronavirus disease. It is called so because its shape under electronic microscopy has the shape of a crown. We're talking of a family within the family of the SARS, which is the severe acute respiratory syndrome, and the MERS, it's the Middle East respiratory syndrome, all having their origin from bats, from cats, from camels in the case of the MERS, but all very similar to influenza. They're all retroviruses that require a human host to multiply. Now let's review. A bacteria has life of its own. A virus is just a sequence of proteins. They're both microorganisms only perceived through microscope. a bacteria has life of its own. It grows, it reproduces, it dies. This is a bacteria. This is a virus. It's just a sequence of proteins that injects its RNA within a human's host cell and replicates using it, its system. Now, this virus has a key, and this key opens only cells within the mucous membrane of the respiratory tract, the nose, the mouth, the trachea, and the whole lungs. It will not go through skin or the digestive system. It is a retrovirus because it requires an inverse transcription to turn the RNA into DNA, and it goes into our own DNA. So it's a personal virus. It actually has a different response according to the sequence, the viral sequence within the DNA of each host. Now, each person that is infected replicates and dissipates through contagion this virus. There are three manifestations. One is asymptomatic, one is a disease like influenza, and the other may be a severe respiratory pneumonia. Every person will respond according to their defense mechanisms. So 80% of us will get infected, but we may not develop symptoms, or they may just be a 3-day flu, very high fevers, cough, dry cough, general malaise, and muscular pain, but only 5% will be critical and perhaps die. We're talking mainly of the older people who have underlying disease. So look out for fever, look out for cough, dry cough, this exhaustion. And if you have underlying bacteria with a sinus, a chronic sinus, for example, or if you have problems with your lungs, you may develop a pneumonia with fibrosis that will require respiratory assistance. So whether we get a test for coronavirus or not, if we get the symptoms, stay at home. Don't go to the hospital because you will be infected if you aren't yet. Stay at home, and what we have to do is deal with the high fevers. Mechanically, we can control it, and we can have aspirins every 6 hours. The moment we have respiratory insufficiency is when we go to the hospital, to emergency. It will be primarily the older people. It will be those with diabetes, with cancer, with low immune system. When you get to the hospital, you will be tested, and that is to send you to a specific ward. Children may not get it as much or as often, but they will be infecting their family because they may be asymptomatic. We still don't have specific tests for the coronavirus. We are using the PCR, which is a polymerase chain reaction. And this is to detect the antibodies against the virus. This test is fast, it's quick, but it does have to be confirmed with a second Western blot or a test which identifies the proteins of the virus, or an ELISA test, which is an enzyme-linked absorbent assay. The moment we get the symptoms, we should cover up, avoid infecting others, avoid going to the hospital unless totally necessary. And in that case, the test will be one indicator to be sent to a ward with respiratory assistance. We're talking of a microparticle, which is very, very sticky, and it requires us to wash our soles when we walk into the house, wash our hands, avoid touching the face. And these would be the phases that are trying to limit the growth of the pandemic. If we see the reason why we are being held at home is to avoid this exponential spike and to make it easier for hospitals to deal with the number of patients expected. This may take until June, July, when we have our peak here in Mexico City. For prevention purposes, we should think of August. Hopefully, 80% of us will by then have been exposed to the virus and have developed antibodies, so that next winter, if it should happen to reappear, we would have the defenses required. How did that sound?
Yeah, Doctor, thank you so much for that great insight in that interview and that presentation, and very, very insightful. I have a question as well, like, I mean, more or less from your opinion, maybe like in Mexico or many other countries around the world, what could or should be the protocol for them to get back to life before the virus? It's what I'm trying to say is, like, how long is that transition? What's the safe way to go from where we are now, staying at home, to, let's say, opening life back to what it was
to normal?
Yeah. Yeah. What does that look like?
Well, I think with the experience we had with the AIDS virus, I'll use that as an example.
Mm-hmm.
The HIV virus is a retrovirus very similar to the coronavirus, and it also it goes into the human cell and hides within the DNA of every person. That makes us asymptomatic, but we are carriers of the virus. We are infecting those around us. Of course, in the case of AIDS, it affected mucous membranes and the blood, and that's why it was sexually transmitted and blood-borne. But in the case of the coronavirus, we're talking of an influenza-like virus, which will affect only the respiratory tract. But it is continually mutating. What does this mean? These viruses surge or evolve from human contact with animals, in this case, the bat. But it could have been the cat in the SARS, for example, or the camels. What it does is this chain of proteins suffers a slight change, and it mutates to adapt to a new host. The hosts are human in this case. And in the tendency through evolution is that the virus will not kill its host for it to to make his life longer. You know what I mean. In
Yeah.
other words, we saw it with AIDS. Now it used to be deadly in its beginning, and now it's chronic. What has happened is that the virus also has lost some of its virulence because it cannot kill its host for it to continue its existence. This is a natural evolution of viruses. So what would be expected long-term foresight of this virus, the coronavirus, would be it will become less virulent. It may be chronic, and we may have it like influenza, seasonal. The trouble is that it mutates in regions. Some regions are hit harder. For example, in the AIDS virus, we had populations in Africa where it was chronic. But the hemophiliacs, for example, developed a subtype of the AIDS virus that was much more lethal. And the same thing it will happen with the coronavirus. It will lose its virulence, and it will make the greater population, 80% of the population, immune to it. We will develop a vaccine within the next 6 months. They're already working on it. It's already been approved in China. And by the time we get it at home, it may take 6 more months. But this is a natural process of different viruses and throughout history. So we have to learn to live with this type of situation, understand what it is, and protect ourselves. I think that the best prevention is not hope for the vaccine. It's be educated and understand how I can avoid getting it, or how I can make for a stronger immune response to it. And this makes me co-responsible with my health. I am responsible, not other people, not the governments, and I have to decide. This will allow me to regain control over my own decisions, eat properly, exercise, do what we know we have to do to avoid this type of problem.
Excellent, Doctor. I have another question. There's certain people out there, I guess more in the mainstream, who say, we should just have this herd mentality in each society, so everyone gets affected all at once, and then we get over it quicker. What would you say to people who say that kind of thing?
There are 4 models to respond towards the coronavirus. One is a technological model, which means test everyone. And now what they're trying to do is test those who have antibodies so that they can be the ones who help in the hospitals, for example. But this is not possible in countries where we don't have the resources for testing everyone.
Mm-hmm.
There are other countries like Denmark where they have taken the natural road. So what is the natural road? Everyone be exposed to the disease, build your defense mechanisms, and we'll deal with the 5% that will get a pneumonia that will require respiratory assistance. So they have not imposed staying at home, for example. We have other approaches towards the virus which have to do with everyone staying at home and avoiding anticipatedly avoid the progression of the spike, the epidemiological spike. So the approaches vary. I understand what some people maybe saying everyone get infected. Well, I think 80% of us will get infected.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you, doctor. My final question is, if any of us had to go outside for any reason and we had to go to the grocery store and we're, around people we don't know, any stranger, what would be the best protocol, in your opinion, if we were around anyone else outside for whatever reason? If we had to pick up some of the pharmacy or grocery store, whatever, what's our best protocol around strangers right now?
Well, understanding that the virus is a microparticle that is very sticky and that it is airborne, I have to cover my mouth. Cover my mouth using whatever everyone may have to their. I mean, people are making their own. Something is better than nothing. Right. Yes, some people argue, but it's useless. You shouldn't use it. Going back to my experience with the condom, for example. Yes, there are condoms that are better, that are thicker. There are some that may, but even a condom that is ruptured is better than no condom, because the chances that you get infected are less. The same with whatever we may use. So use gloves. People who go on the metro, for example, in Mexico, or the subway, and use those gloves. And when you get home, take those plastic rubber gloves and put them in a bucket of water with Clorox or with something, and just wash your hands again with soap and water is enough to disintegrate the lipid membrane of the virus. So wash up correctly, wash your face, take off the clothes, the sweater, the coat you had. If you can, shower, depending on how exposed you were. We should go out with sleeves on so that we can actually take it off and feel free from the virus. Wash your feet, your shoes, the soles of the shoes, which could have stepped on. The virus may stay alive or infecting within 14-15 hours. So we can just step on a mirror of water with Clorox, for example. These simple procedures, as surgeons, what we do is we have a black zone, which is the infected zone, the outside. We have a gray zone, which is where we wash up. And then we have the white zone, which is where we do surgery. So what we have to do at home is have a gray zone where we wash up, we leave our shoes, we wash them up, we wash up and take off our clothes, whatever we were carrying, and then go into the safe, clean area, which should be at home. We have to keep it ventilated. We have to change the sheets regularly, wash them with Clorox, light, hang the clothes up in the sunlight. This is very important to inactivate the virus. We also have to deal with the second epidemic, which would be the emotional epidemic. Go out to the sun so that your vital cycle will allow you to sleep at night. What's happening is that you're watching television or in the computer, and then you go to bed at night, very late or very early in the morning, and then we break our cycles, which are physiologically determined by the sunlight. So we do have to set a schedule and keep order with the hours in which we eat, our timing to sleep is very, very important. If we don't get regular sleep, we will fall into anxiety and depression and phobias, but it will be a physical response. So we do have to learn to take care of our bodies and eat correctly, get strong, don't eat out of time within the schedule of eating hours. If we sit by the television and eat all the time, we will lower our defense mechanism, and we will be exposed, and we won't be strong enough to fight off the virus when we get it.
Excellent, Doctor. That's extremely insightful and great information. And I thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for being
Thank
on this
you.
episode of Spirit Lips. It's been a pleasure. And Spirit Lip viewers, if you have any questions or comments about everything Dr. Gloria said, please let us know. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.